Hello and welcome to another episode of Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow a process, and hopefully buy really happy. I am back on my uncomfortable side of the desk this morning, and we're joined by a 15-year real estate veteran who's the queen of Brisbane apartment sales and also a proud new mum.
Thank you.
Shenal Yigitbas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Did I get that right?
Me. Yes, you did. Very good.
I've been practicing. Literally been practicing all morning. I'm very proud of myself.
Well done.
I said in that very short introduction that you are the queen of unit and apartment sales. Units are going nuts.
They are. And
Why?
it's nice to see.
Yeah.
It really is, 15 years of dedicating yourself. And I do pride myself on being an apartment agent, an apartment townhouse. Of course, we'll sell anything, but I think you've got to find your lane in real estate. I think there's a lot of factors around why they're coming into themselves. Firstly, they're affordable still. Even though people are saying they're expensive, when you compare, especially in the areas I work in, a city rim, if you were to look at an apartment in Sydney, for example, a one bedroom, you're sort of looking in the equivalent $1 million. We're still seeing 700 to 800. You can still buy something pretty decent. I think also people, since COVID, time has become a big commodity for people, so they don't want to travel as far for work, they don't want to be spending weekends doing gardens, maintenance around the house, and it's just easy. Life's gotten busy and people think, well, how can I simplify life? And I think those are some of the major factors as to why apartments are going gangbusters at the moment.
Do you think we'll see the $1 million one-bedroom apartment in Brisbane?
I think with what we have coming up with the Olympics, the Queen's Wharf development, what they've done down at Howard Smith Wharfs, wouldn't surprise me. We live in one of the most beautiful cities in Australia. People might disagree with that, but it's the livability and how easy it is for life here still. I think that'll change, and we are growing. We're like that ugly cousin who grew up beautifully, and it's really nice to see because I remember sort of 5 years ago, you'd stand outside of an open, you get two groups through an apartment and you'd think it was your day made and it was really cool. Now you put on a good apartment, you style it, you market it well, and you're getting anywhere from 30 to 40 groups in your first weekend, and it's really good to see.
Do you think apartments are now seen more as a genuine alternative to a house for a lot of families? Because I think if you look at that family market, it typically is the mum and dad, one or two kids that drives prices because there's an emotional connection. You hadn't really had that with apartments until, I think, probably, you're right, the last 5 years.
Yeah, and you know what? I've, as you said, just become a mum myself, and we live in an apartment in the area that I wanted to live in. Before, it was still affordable to buy a small cottage home that would need work. My husband's a builder, but yet we chose to live in a 3-bedroom unit that was probably bigger than some of those houses that we were looking at, because lifestyle is important. And when you're working 6 days or when you're on the tools, the last thing you want to come home and do work more to your own home. I definitely think there's that. And it's also the boomers. They've had these properties that they've lived in for 20, 30 plus years, and they've done really well out of them. We recently had a ground floor unit, and the lady had sold out down south, had some money, and that was going to be her house for the next 20 to 30 years. So for her, she knew she wanted it, and she wasn't going to let anything stop her from getting it.
Okay. I want to talk about how you sell these units, right? Because there's a perception that only houses go to auction. You sell a lot of units, and you sell a lot of units by auction.
Yeah.
What do you say to a buyer when they walk through one of your open homes and they see all the shoes and they're scared to go to auction?
There's no right or wrong property to auction. I think if you understand the process, now for such a long time, people said auctions were the competition creators. We don't need that in this market. What we need is transparency, not just our sellers, because in a good market, sometimes sellers can think my property is worth a lot more than what it is, but also for buyers, because buyers will always have a research price for a property, and we'll never fully extend ourselves until you're in that open, transparent environment. Now, even for myself, I bought a property off market from a great agent who I knew for a long time. Did we pay a premium? I felt we did. Now, 8 months later, no, I didn't. But it's that closed door. And so when these buyers are coming through, they've missed out on 2, 3, 4 properties because they've been put in a multiple offer situation. And in that situation, you're told, hey, I need your best and final, but I can't tell you what it needs to be. Now, who's ever going to fully extend themselves in that environment? With the auction process, you know exactly who you're bidding against. You know how many people you're bidding against, but you also know that at the end of the day, if you buy it, you paid fair market value, even if it may have been a little bit more than what you thought it was worth. And if you missed out, you wouldn't have paid any more. And it's that fairness that buyers feel like they're probably missing out on in this market.
Is that what you say to a buyer, that it's not about competition, it's about transparency?
Yeah, 100%. Wouldn't you rather know that on this day at this time the property is selling instead of, because at the end of the day, when you're in a multiple offer, I mean, we had an auction last week, 12 registered bidders. Imagine doing that in a multiple offer, and to actually service those buyers correctly and with true integrity as an agent, it's really hard. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's really hard. And also, how nice is it to be able to go to a vendor and say, hey, we've fully extended our buyers, whether they like the result or they don't, it's that you can't argue with it. So it's fair. I think that's what people are craving in our market today. It's just fairness.
I'd agree with that. I would say that better than 80% of our inquiry comes the week or the day after someone has missed out, usually at best and finals.
Yeah.
If it's auction, they cop it a little bit more. It's disappointing, but at least it's almost more real because they saw the person buy the house. There was no bullshit. They missed out by $1,000 or whatever it might have been, rather than a huge gap.
But they were given an opportunity, and that's it. Like, you got to remember, whether someone's buying a $100,000 house or a $100 million home, it's their biggest asset normally. And so for them, their time is so important. You can never get your time back, so don't waste someone's time. With an auction, it's like, well, it's fair game. And I try and make it as easy as possible. We provide all, building and pests. If they need help with finance, we've obviously got connections with finance brokers. We hold your hand through it. We've got the time to do that. I'm not saying, hey, come to an auction, your first one, and let's see how you go. We're sitting down having, bidding strategy meetings and stuff like that, because if you feel comfortable with something and you understand it, it works. And it's been working.
Let's talk about how you hold people's hand, right? So I'm a buyer. I've come through one of your open homes on a Saturday. There was a lot of other people there.
Yeah.
What's your process? What can I expect to hear from you and your team?
Yeah, of course. So on a Saturday, obviously you have your first open home. People get automatic texts from us, and in that there's everything: rental, appraisal, contracts, building and pest. If they're not there, you get the building pest within the first week. Now, I always say because everyone's like, can I secure it before auction? And first weekend,
Guilty.
you're like, yeah, and of course, you want to get ahead of the pack. But after the first weekend, if there's been 7, 8 interested parties making offers, the conversation just goes back to, hey, if I accept your offer today, if the vendor says they're happy to take it, I then must go back to everyone else. And then we're just back to square one. So we have to roll the dice on behalf of the vendor as well, because that buyer could equally go and find another property. However, when you've got that many, you can't change the goalpost on people. I think agents need to have the confidence, if you're going to set an auction, unless there's something out of this world crazy price, roll it through, because people like that. We go back to that transparency. You said you're going to do something, do it. And so that's the conversations. And most buyers are really happy with that. Some will say, oh, our broker says that we can't bid at an auction. And it's like, well, go back to your broker and ask why. And if they don't give you that confidence to be able to bid, find another one. Because even if you're not putting offers on an auction property, in today's market, you need to be able to go in with a pretty clean offer. And that unfortunately means no finance.
I'm going to ask you about clean offers in a second, because I think it's important. Chase and I talk about it on this show a lot. What does a good offer actually look like? It'd be nice to hear it from another voice, but I want to keep on the service element for a second, right? Because I think a lot of people, whether they end up talking to a buyer's agent or just have a less than positive experience in the market, it's because they don't hear from real estate agents, whether it's they don't even get the automated text message, or they don't get a follow-up, or they don't get that phone call that there has been an offer received, and they just get the notification from realestate.com.au that it's sold. Let's say I've come through your open home, I've got your text message. Walk me through, how often would you actually stay in touch with the buyer over the course of a 3 or 4 week auction campaign to make sure that you don't lose them and that they are there and they are comfortable on the day?
Look, with automated texts in our world today, there's no excuse really. You don't want to be in their face on top of them, because they're nervous anyway. All my buyers know. So, we're getting 55, 60 groups to a property. Very quickly, there are the ones that just, even if you ask and ask again, if you could buy it at the right money, would you buy it? No, surely there's a price for everything. And they're like, definitely not. So they go into a cold category. Then you've got the parties that are saying, yep, we're interested, we'd like further information. They go into a warm category. Now, they will get a text to a reminder for every open home. the week of the auction, it's, we're auction week now. We'd like to get people pre-registered to make the process as seamless and as calm as possible. That's really important because we don't want people making, sort of scatty decisions. And then the hot people, you'd be sort of talking to them every day, just making sure there's nothing that they need, last minute private inspections, anything like that. Now, I'm lucky at the moment I've got a team and we can facilitate that. I think we have to go easy on some agents where they're holding a good number of stock, good quality stock. There's only one of us. And there's only so much you can do. Like, people need to remember there's life outside, and as much as every client's important, and this is a big aspect as to where you guys come in as well, because we do our best, but sometimes our best might not be perceived as enough. But it's quite often that we're keeping in contact.
Cool. Let's go back to offers then. So in the unusual circumstance that you're either going to sell something before the auction date or it's passed in or you've priced it by negotiation for whatever reason, how would you describe a good offer?
A good offer, it depends. Is the agent providing the building and pest for you? Is it a unit? Is it a house? But end of the day, an auction contract is as good as you can get. So waiving that, cooling off, no finance, no building and pest, 30-day settlement, depending on what the seller wants. That's a good offer at the end of the day.
And you talked before about going back to your broker and getting confidence about waiving finance clauses and everything like that. And anyone who listens to more than a couple of episodes of this show will probably think we'll end up repeating ourselves. But I think it's really important to drill down. How often would you see an offer made that's not an auction where it has a finance clause at the moment?
Still probably 90% of the time. It's still really common. But in saying that, I haven't done a lot of non-auctions private treaty sales at this point as well. I think what buyers also need to remember, there's nothing logical about our market at the moment.
Yeah, this is true.
Lack of supply, high demand, but there's also a lot of emotions. And now as the government keeps changing things, it's not going to go anywhere. So I think you need to take confidence that if you feel like you're extending yourself today, in 60 days' time, you'll make that money back.
Okay, let's talk about what government intervention. You're probably an agent that experienced or is in the middle of experiencing this more than some because of what you sell and I guess a lot of the price point that you sell. Yeah. How has the market shifted since the 5% deposit scheme? And equally, did you see it jump again when the stamp duty threshold got up to 700?
Yeah, definitely. 2 and a bit years ago, we're selling things in my area. One of my main areas is Clayfield. I took a break from real estate for a bit and we're selling things sort of high 3s, early 4s. Then the government things come in, all of a sudden everything's 700. Yeah. And I was selling things for 550, thinking I was ripping people off. And then overnight it just jumped to 700. Now it's jumped again to 800. Not saying that's everything, but there's a good chunk of things that now because people can, they will. And they are aware that they need to get ahead of everyone else. Because like I said, it's not slowing down. Investors are also coming back into the market, but they're not relying on that 5% as well. At the end of the day, you need to remember, you still need to service it.
For sure. Have you got a lot of new faces in the market since the 1st of October where people who perhaps were sitting on the sidelines watching the market, waiting to save that bigger deposit and now like, oh shit,
I can actually do something. Yeah. Yes and no. I think there was a lot of buyers that were testing the market, seeing what things were selling for, but weren't ready to go. And now, since the 1st, they're ready to go and they're starting to buy. So there's more competition again. It's just what it is. And I don't know if it's the right thing or the wrong thing for the government, but it's what we're working with. And it is giving people who may have not had the opportunity to buy to get in the market, which is great. I think also in today's market, young couples that maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't common to buy a property with your partner before marriage, or people are willing to commit to that. And it's not unusual for that to happen anymore.
Fair enough. I got 2 more questions for you and then I'll get you out of here so you can get back to your beautiful baby. You probably meet a lot of first-time buyers.
Yeah.
What's a mistake that you see a lot of first-time buyers make that hopefully this podcast can help them avoid?
There's probably 2, probably thinking that they're bigger than the market. We're not here, and I say this to my clients, I'm not here to poo-poo you. When I ask a question, I'm asking it because I need to know so I can help guide you. Secondly, parent involvement.
Spoken as a new parent.
Yeah.
That'll be you one day.
Yeah, but I'm an agent.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'd be like, go and learn.
Yeah.
I think the market is so different to when our parents bought.
Agreed.
And even as an agent, before buying a property, I still ask my mum and dad what they think, what their thoughts are. It's important. It's important to bring your parents and all that sort of stuff. It's when they try and take over. And because I'm sort of the similar age to my clients who are buying and whatnot, they think they can sort of tell you how to do your job. Just, it's a learning curve for them. Enjoy it. It should be a fun process. But, yeah, keep the parents away.
Unpack bigger than the market for me a little bit more.
I think they will be like, oh, this is what this sold for and this sold for. And when I'm trying to guide them and really, as I said, there's nothing logical about the market. So something could have sold across the road 2 weeks ago for X amount, but 40 new buyers came into the market this week. So, and once again, going back to that auction process, that's why we do it. Cool.
We've been saying to a lot of people who sort of send us DMs and everything, and for the most part, it has been over the last 3 weeks about sub-$1 million properties. And I was like, you just need to look at the one that sold on the weekend. That is realistically the only comparable price. Whether it's a comparable property or not, you don't know. But there is more energy, more people. And I think your comment of there's 40 people in the market this week that there weren't last week, that's probably the case for anything under $1 million in a good part of Brisbane at the moment.
And I think you also just have to think, depending on what's the purpose of your purchase, like if you're going to live there for the next 5 years, work out a price you're willing to pay for it and pay it. There's no reason as to why and whatnot, but how much is your Saturday's worth? How much is your time worth? So if you fall in love with a property, it might hurt, but you just work out the price and think to myself, I wouldn't pay $1 more. Pay it.
Okay. I hope that's not the same answer to the last question I'm going to ask you, but we end these chats with agents with the same question every single time, which is, what is your one tip for someone who wants to buy this weekend?
Get a buyer's agent.
Thank you.
Oh, look, there's lots of tips, but I think just being out there in front of us as well. There's, like I said, so many buyers and only one of us. Make yourself memorable to the agents and whatnot, but again, just work out what you're willing to pay for a property and pay it, because in 6 months' time you're going to be like, I wish I just paid that extra $5,000.
Shenal Yigitbas, thank you.
Thank you.